Looks like we got some with us online who aren't here in the room, so the hybrid thing is working. For those of you whom I haven't met before, my name is Donnell King. No, I don't know Mike Tyson. Yeah, my hair looks different. Let's just get that out of the way. How many of you have no idea what I'm talking about? We're just going to leave it like that.
So we'll have Donnell King when we get out of here.
Yeah, we can explain it later. You young whippersnappers. Anyway, glad to have some time this afternoon to talk about the mystery speechcraft. Now, I have to turn to Chitra to say that she's the one who put the word mystery in there for me, I think, in the title. And so I'm curious as to how many people in here might have had some experience with speechcraft at some time. Do you have other speechcrafters? Okay. See, I have a particular affinity. Come on in. Come on in. We got folks still getting in. Bathroom breaks are important. Have you ever gone to Kroger's and somebody approaches you with a plate and they say, would you like to try some cheese? Okay, you know about cheese sampling? Okay? That kind of thing is important, isn't it? I mean, who wants to buy a big old hunk of cheese and you don't know whether you're going to like it or not? It's just basic marketing. Speechcraft is sort of Toastmasters cheese sampling. But I'm not sure that you think of it that way. Now, just to give you a little bit of background on how I got started with speechcraft, the morning cup that you all have heard many of us talking since we've been in this conference. I think last night we were about 20% of the audience. We had, I don't know if we still have, we had about 11 club members here today. Now, sometimes people say, wow, that's a lot of your club. You may have heard in the last session, we have close to 30 members in the club. And I'm going to lead into speechcraft, the current interest in speechcraft from that. But the morning cup started from speechcraft. That's where we got it started. But it was before times. Okay, it has changed, so it's a bit of a mystery to me as well. Now, to kind of put this in context, I want to kind of ask you, is everybody in here a Toastmaster? Do we have any guests who aren't Toastmasters? So everybody is in Toastmasters right now. How did you get to your first Toastmasters meeting? Was it because somebody invited you? Okay, how many of you just looked it up, found a club, and went, and you didn't know anybody? There's one here. Okay, we've got several folks here, all right? But for the rest of you, would you have gone to a Toastmasters meeting if you had to walk into a room full of strangers? Now, those of you who did that, commendations to you. But what was the on-ramp for the rest of us? Did somebody invite you? Why did that matter? Do you find it hard to walk into a room full of strangers? That's where the cheese sampling thing comes in. You see, how much are you committing? If you're walking into a room full of strangers, it takes more of a commitment. If you've got a friend who's going with you. Does that make sense? Yes.
Just because I want to hear what you were going to say, we do now have a non-member in the room.
I realize you came in.
So I didn't know if you were going to ask her whatever it was you were going to ask.
Yeah. And Destiny, what we were saying was, how did you get to your first Toastmasters meeting? It sounds like you were somebody who sought it out, or did somebody invite you?
So the military offers a program called Skill Bridge for those that are getting out of the service to transition into civilian life, so it's much easier for us. Through that, different companies offer videos on how to enhance your LinkedIn. And one of their recommendations is whatever you're trying to get into, finding individuals on LinkedIn using that title, so Toastmasters, and finding individuals that have those accolades and connecting with them and reaching out, which is essentially what I did and how I did it.
Okay. There's even something similar here, folks, because what you're hearing is there's another on-ramp. It's not just simply showing up somewhere. There was some seed planting that went on there. Now, speechcraft has always been this. When the morning cup started, It was the older program, by which I mean it was just an in-person thing. There really wasn't an online component to it. And I have to recognize, I have heard from Stanley C., who's in our club a couple of times, is we've been talking about maybe using Speechcraft to spin off what I think of as a daughter club. Stanley has said, well, you know, it's really intended for building up your club. And I want to recognize that, okay? Especially under the current iteration of it. And I just realized I meant to be recording myself here, so hold on just 1 second. I always forget to hit that record button. You know, one of the things Darren LaCroix talks about was stage time, stage time, stage time. He also emphasizes always getting recordings of your speeches because you can't hear yourself the way the audience does. So this is just a way for me to get feedback from myself. Okay. Have any of you gone on a cruise, ocean cruise? Okay. For those of you who went on a cruise, did they have some medication for you to help with seasickness? Did anybody use, I'm just looking to see if there's anybody in the room who might know what I'm talking about already.
I know what you're talking about, but I didn't use it.
Didn't use it, okay. So the drug I'm talking about, I'm not recommending you get on drugs to go to Toastmasters. Okay. But there is a medication, it's called scopolamine. Turns out it also has a reputation as a date drug. I don't even know how that comes into it. But I know that it comes in patches and it is designed to put behind the ear to help with seasickness. Now, I have a severely disabled dog. She has not only never been on a cruise, she's never traveled further than Nashville. And for the last 18 years, she's not traveled any further than Knoxville. But she uses scopolamine for what the doctors would call off-label use. For its side effects, she tends to produce too much saliva. Scopolamine has a side effect of drying you up. So it's prescribed as an off-label use. I would like to suggest to you that Speechcraft has multiple off-label uses. Okay, I would agree that the way it's structured is intended to help club growth. And if that's the way that you use it, well worthwhile for that. But there are other aspects to it. Now, let me tell you what we're not going to be doing today. We're not going to be pulling up the website. We're not going to be looking at the how-to. We're looking more at the why. We were talking about why in the last session. We talked about why earlier today. Why would you want to use Speechcraft in your club? Why would somebody out there in the community be interested in Speechcraft? And that's more what we're looking at, is whether you even want to use it or not. Does that make sense to you?
Quick clarification. What
Yes.
is Speechcraft?
What is Speechcraft?
I thought
Thank
it was
you.
just something you made up.
Yeah. Maybe it's something Toastmasters made up. And that's a great question, Elizabeth. For those, you're pretty close to the camera, so I think the folks out there probably heard the question. Just to make sure, the question is, what is Speechcraft? And I have to say, I don't know what the official definition is. I think of Speechcraft as being cheese sampling for Toastmasters. That is, it's a way of giving people a taste of what we do in Toastmasters. In a way, it's getting back to what Destiny was talking about earlier in the last session, between sessions. You know, what is Toastmasters? What's the benefit? What do you really get out of it? So Speechcraft, to get a little more technical, it's a 6 to 8 week program that can step you first 2 or 3 speeches that we would typically do in a Toastmasters meeting. Okay? It can be structured in a variety of ways. Those of you who have done it before, the big change has been that a big portion of it is done online. I think some people think that means you have to do all of it online. That's, I don't think, particularly good, especially for clubs that are not at least hybrid. If you're doing your clubs in person, why would you cheese sample with an online product? But there are ways to adapt it, and Toastmasters is pretty explicit about that. You don't have to do the whole thing online. You can, but there's some freedom involved in doing it in a sort of asynchronous hybrid format. Now, maybe I'm throwing some jargon around right here, so just to make sure we understand it, you understand asynchronous means you don't all have to be on at the same time. You can use the online portion to sort of replace a textbook or a manual. So to me, that's one of the great advantages of the way we're doing it now, is that you don't spend as much time in your face-to-face meetings talking about the how-to, the sheer information. You can spend more of your face-to-face time doing speeches, doing things. And any of you who've ever been to school, you know there's a potential downside here. Shall I ask for a show of hands? Did you always do the reading before you went to class? So it's possible for people to be left behind if they get busy and they don't do the online portion. Potential downside. On the other hand, what I've always done, and again, for those of you that I'm just meeting, for the last 40 years, I have spent a good part of my time working with college students to develop effective communication skills. Last 32 years, I have been an associate professor of communication studies at Pellissippi State here in Knoxville. That's a fancy way of saying professor standing up in front of people and saying stuff, which is my preferred description. I know, having been a student myself, that they don't necessarily prepare. So I say to my students, I'm not going to try to catch you up. Here's a little secret. I learned this from my doctor, by the way. My doctor caught me one time cheating on a medical test. Now you say, how do you do that? She'd been checking my blood sugar levels for a while, and I don't like for her to fuss at me. So for a couple of weeks before going to the doctor, I would lay off with the soda. Until one day she threw an A1C at me. Now, those of you who know about that, I see some looks of recognition. That's a test that looks at what your average blood sugar has been over the previous 90 days. And she said to me, your blood sugar this morning was a normal 110, but your A1C indicates over the last 90 days that it's probably averaged 180. Why is there that disparity? And I got a little sheepish, and then she said, let me tell you something. I get paid the same. And that's what I tell my students. You don't do the preparation, you don't get the use out of this class, I get paid the same. It's your time, your life. And they don't think of it as their money because so many of them have financial aid or something like that, but it's your opportunity. You blow this one, you don't get it again. I get paid the same. So I would say something like that to the people taking part in Speechcraft. You know, this is an opportunity for you. We want to be useful to you. Please do prepare for it. And if you don't, we're not going to kick you out, but just understand we don't have time to catch you up, and we don't want you to feel lost. So let me get back into sort of my organization, such as it is. I think one of the big uses of Speechcraft is to start to form a community, so it's not people walking into a room full of strangers, for Toastmasters. When the morning cup started, we've been laughing with Mary. I want everybody to understand we love Mary. We talk about Mother Mary, okay? She really has been like a shepherd for us from the very beginning. We still have among our, what's the word I'm looking for, charter members. We had 20 people, you know, to start the club. How many charter members do we have left, Mary? Roughly? Like maybe 3, 4?
Yeah. I'm one.
Support.
I think maybe 8.
And I'm gonna go sideways here just a second, folks. This is a fact of life with all of our clubs. The accepted wisdom among nonprofit groups is that you need to gain 15% each year just to stay even. People will move, people will change jobs, people will drop because they don't see it as being useful. We try to avoid that one, but you can't avoid the other attrition. 15% just to stay even. The Morning Cup has been around, is it 6 years now? I'm real bad with time, 6 years. And out of those 20, there's only about 4 left. We're up to about 30 members right now. There's a lot of new faces there. Not too many of them just walked in off the street. Somebody invited. Speechcraft was the on-ramp for our initial group. And I'm going to put Mary on the spot because she was one of the 3 people that said, hey, you know, we really need to have a club in Maryland. Who was it that got that initial group together, Mary?
Oh, and you and I. Regina. Yeah, oh, I'm talking about, yes.
Yeah.
The group. We targeted everybody drinking coffee in the Morning Cup area in the Vienna. And there she was, and when she said, okay, I'm bringing my group, she said, okay, I'm coming and I'm bringing my group, and she brought the whole group.
Yeah, Regina is one of those people who knows everybody in Maryland.
Right.
Siobhan told you.
Yeah, but we're all set time saying Regina Voluntovis. Now understand, Regina has those connections because she's one of the kind of people we were talking about in the last session who's genuinely interested and concerned about people. She had a pre-existing group, and she brought most of those folks with her. And out of most of those folks who came to that Speechcraft, because that's what she did. She didn't commit to Toastmasters. She said, okay, I'll give it a shot. 4 weeks, 6 weeks, however long that thing lasted.
8 weeks.
Yeah, was it 8 weeks for that first
8
one?
weeks.
Okay, because back then there was no online portion, you know, so we did some education and then we did some speeches. 8 weeks, we can manage that. And out of the, I think it was 25 people that signed up for the Speechcraft, 22 of them wound up joining Toastmasters. There were 2 or 3 people who said after the 8 weeks, this has been good, but I've got enough going on already. Now, any of you who've been in sales, you know that is a phenomenal closing percentage. Even if it had been just half of that number, that would be people who otherwise, I think, would not have joined Toastmasters. Because, you know, you go to somebody and say, hey, would you like to join Toastmasters? It costs X. Now, there was cost involved. But I think that's one of the real uses here. Now, as we're talking about potential uses, maybe off-label uses, we used it to start a new club. We're talking about and still talking about, we've got 30 members, roughly. Not bad in and of itself, but that limits the opportunity. Got to go down a side path here. I've been a member of 3 other clubs, I think. Most of those other clubs, we always struggled to fill the speaker slots. I don't know what it's like at your club, but that was my experience with it, because people would say, I don't have time. Okay. The Morning Cup has speakers scheduled right now through July. Because people are realizing, you know, if I don't sign up for a slot, I may not get to sign up for a while. That's one of the reasons we're looking at spinning off another club. Another reason for forming a daughter club goes back to something I was talking about in the last session that comes out of church growth literature. Among other things that I do, I also pastor a church. One of the things that we know about growing churches is that they have a tendency to plant other congregations. They're not in competition, they're just reaching out to the community. The rule of thumb that I've always heard is that a community can support about the number of Toastmasters clubs that you have McDonald's in the area.
That's right.
Have you heard that before?
Yes.
Okay, yes, some people have. Okay, Blount County has at least 5 dogs. Oh,
Yeah, 5, I think.
5,
and right now, 1 club. There's a lot of opportunity there. For some people in our community, 7:30 a.m. on Wednesdays is a non-starter. So there's opportunity to serve the community, and just that community service thing, you see, is an important thing to do with Speechcraft. We offer it to the community. If not a single person joins, we have still helped to impact the community. Just about everybody who's in the club is already in that kind of mindset, kind of business people that are there. They're not all business people, but they have that mindset of serving. As long as we're talking about advantages here, if you will look, and by the way, this is your handout for this session. Over there on the blank pages, okay, page 32. I would encourage you to take notes here. We're not, I don't think we're evaluating handouts as we evaluate speakers. I've not seen evaluation forms, but if there were, I would expect it to have 5s on the handouts because you're making your own. Okay, so jot down the ideas that occur to you that you could use in your club. One of the advantages of doing Speechcraft is that it will satisfy something you find elsewhere in this book. And that is one of those DTM requirements. I saw Renee looking for that page just a little bit earlier. It's on page 6. It's in print form on page 7, but if you look at the chart on page 6, you can be a club sponsor, you can do Speechcraft, or you can do the youth leadership program for one of the requirements for DTM. Now, if you're not going for DTM, that doesn't matter that much to you. But if you are, I'm not going to say who it was, but I was talking with somebody yesterday about those options. And I made the point that I think this is one of the fastest ways to satisfy that particular requirement. Club sponsor is a 6-month, 1 year.
Oh, God. Mentor.
At least 6 months.
Sponsors.
At
6
least
months.
6 months, yeah. And then another level is club mentor, club coach. Now, doing Speechcraft will not get you out of that. And I don't even want to talk about it in terms of getting you out of something. It's just that if you were looking for something that would be intense but short, Speechcraft is a great way to satisfy the requirement.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So I'm fairly new to Toastmasters, but just so I'm clear, if I were going on this route and I wanted to do a Speechcraft group, 8 weeks, I would kind of look at who's in my life and maybe see if I could get them to commit to doing like an 8-week mini Toastmaster group. Is that?
Mini Toastmaster group is a good way to think about it.
Okay.
Okay, because with this, the on-ramp thing, you think about these folks that join, they may be strangers when they join, but it's just the sampling thing. They're only committing to 6 weeks. But at the end of 6 weeks, what have those people done with each other? They've bonded, right? Okay, it's like people who have survived a plane crash together. They all bond. They're no longer strangers. It's just for 6 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever. Bert, yes.
It's also 4 weeks, 4, 6, or 8.
Yeah, you can do it in 4 weeks, and that's pretty intense. It is doable. One thing that I have found a lot of people aren't particularly sure about with the new program, it comes in bundles, it's in groups of 5. Now, what do I mean by that? Had it been in place when we formed the Morning Cup, then maybe, was it Paul or you that more got it started, Mary?
Well, I did all the agendas and the schedule.
Yeah.
And
Whose
so-
idea was it to begin with? Because was it you and Paul talking to each other?
Yeah.
How did you meet at a Rotary Club meeting or something? Do you remember?
We were part of the Speech Master Advanced and we just.
Okay, so they were already-
that. Yeah.
Already Toastmasters in another club and started talking about the need for a club in Blount County. Okay, so the two of you kind of started out of the conversation.
Right.
Okay, and then, so there's two people involved. Can't even remember for sure how, I think I was a member of Speech Masters.
You
at the
were.
time.
You were.
Okay, so I just got involved in the conversation. We could have gotten the three of us credit towards DTM because for every 5 people, you have to get a bundle. And for each bundle, there can be somebody who gets credit. Now, potentially, if I had been by myself and we had 10 people, I could have bought 2 bundles. I could have served 10 people, but only I would have got the credit. So there is a built-in incentive if I'm wanting to start a club for me to go out and find 2 or 3 other people who are existing Toastmasters. You can get some credit towards your DTM. And what does that do? It means I'm not doing it by myself. Okay, it really bonded the 3 of us because we didn't know each other before that, really. Okay, so that is an advantage. Now, having said that, to me, one of the disadvantages, and again, Mary, you know me and my memory, and you're much more detail-oriented. Did we have an existing Toastmasters club that kind of acted as sponsor, or were we able to just kind of do that on our own back then?
We did that on our own.
On our own, okay. So because we were Toastmasters, we had access to the materials. We just bought the materials. The way things are now, a club has to order the Speechcraft stuff. Okay, now I've seen 3 hands over here. So let me start back here and I'll come to you, CJ. Yeah.
So this is the first time I've ever heard about Speechcraft, and I don't know what a bundle is. It sounded like a.
5 people, 5
5
people
people.
who signed up to be students. So
And then it gives you credit towards DTM.
Mhm.
So it's actually a part of the breakdown or the qualifications that you can earn towards your DTM.
Right, and for clarity, I just have to say, if the 5 of you were the students coming in, it's not that you're getting credit towards your DTM. It's that me as the organizer, I get credit towards the DTM. So what do you get? Well, if you complete the program and you want to use it, then you can use, I think, 3 of the speeches, right?
Yes.
To count towards a pathway. So you're getting a head start on credit for you in Toastmasters.
Because you're not starting a path during Speechcraft.
Oh, okay.
You're
But
not,
you are a member.
you're.
No, you're not a member of the
Toastmaster.
You're just, okay. So basically, this is kind of like a carrot.
Exactly.
For Toastmasters.
Yeah.
Okay.
I keep using the cheese sampling, but you don't get to keep the cheese, right? When you're literally cheese sampling, this is, well, and there's another aspect to it that kind of goes along with it. I think you can still do this. We charged $20 for each Speechcraft participant. That was to pay for the manual. But then we also told people, now if, not required to, but if you decide to join Toastmasters, then the 3 speeches will count towards whatever path you choose, and this will pay for your new member initiation fee.
So is that true?
I think it is still the case.
We use that money, but I don't know the cost of the Speechcraft now. Do you know? Have you looked up the cost?
I think it works out about the same, because you have to buy a bundle of 5, which means, again, it has to come through a club. That means the money has to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
So later on in my notes here, I have a suggestion that you get a sponsor to help with it. Now, we did that for the morning cup, but that was about the club, what's the word I'm looking for?
For the application.
The application fee. Yeah, so you can use sponsors like that. I think you could get a sponsor for a Speechcraft.
Sure.
Because there's no guarantee that the people that sign up for Speechcraft are going to want to join Toastmasters. If that's the case, then the $20 that they paid for Speechcraft, you just use that to pay for the materials.
Right.
But if they want to join, and that $20 is going towards their new member fee, then the club's not getting that money back, you see. So you've got to figure out where that's coming from.
I don't think it will work because they buy the materials for Speechcraft. You can't use that same money to then buy the new member. But I think
Well, if you charge more than it costs for the bundle,
Yeah,
of
see,
five, you've got the money that you need.
yeah, we have to look and see how much do the bundles cost. And because they come in bundles of 5,
$50.
it's $50 for a bundle of 5.
If you have one person sign up, it's $50. If you have 5 people sign up, it's $50. You can set the rate. You could give it to them. Like I just did one for a college that we gave to them, or you could structure it in such a manner that you could actually, if you had some people that really wanted this, you could set your dues in such a way that you could actually pay their first 20 plus their first 6 months.
Yeah.
You say, when you finish this, if you're interested, you're all automatically a Toastmaster.
Yeah.
It's how strong you feel about it. But the best thing is get your feet wet, and as soon as the more you do, the better it is.
Yeah, and see, one aspect that's implied by what Bert was saying there, if you just give it to them, that money's got to come from somewhere. Now, if you've got it in your treasury, great. If you're like the Morning Cup was for so long, we didn't even charge local dues. We didn't have a treasury.
Right.
You got to get a sponsor, or you've got to get a Toastmaster who wants to satisfy that requirement so badly that they'll just pay for it. I mean, there's lots of different ways to put that together. Now, let me take a step back here, folks. One of the things that I learned, I don't have my phone in front of me. How are we doing on time, Bert?
Okay.
Okay. One of the things I learned in working with colleges, in working with churches, and working with businesses, working with my business clients, because if you see me up there on the screen, I'm the confidence cultivator. You know, I work with clients. Okay. When we start talking about what to do, one of the first things people want to say is, how much does it cost? That's a worthwhile question, but not right now, because first we need to figure out, do we want to do this? Is this in line with if I'm consulting with a company, does this fit our mission? If it doesn't, then it doesn't matter if it's just $5. We don't need to spend $5. If it is going to further our mission, then it becomes a matter of practical questioning about how do we do this. And admittedly, it may be that we can't afford to do it, even though it would fit our mission. There is a place to ask about the cost. I don't mind answering the question. I'm going to tell you at the end here, I'm going to give you contact information where we can talk more about the practicalities of how do you do this. What we're focusing on right now, folks, is do we want to do this? Is this good for our club? Is this good for our community? So I'm going to kind of push off those questions a little bit until later because they're good questions. They got to get answered. It's a little too early for a lot of you who have just heard about Speechcraft. Okay, that's the mystery of Speechcraft, I think. Okay, so things change. I'm not holding myself out as an expert on Speechcraft, even if I could have considered myself an expert 5 years ago. Not now, because there's too much that has changed. Dean Phillips. Dean is not in the room right now. Dean has advised me, and Bert, you've done Speechcraft recently. Okay, there are people who know the how-to here. It's just the mystery aspect is not that anybody was trying to hide it. We just don't know about it. And I'm learning this also. I feel like I know how to do Speechcraft as far as doing it, but the how to get it started and all that sort of thing. So why would somebody out there in the community be interested in Speechcraft? They've not heard of Toastmasters. They've certainly not heard of Speechcraft. In fact, as we were doing some surveys to see if there'd be an interest in the community for it, we didn't use the term Speechcraft because they're not going to know. We asked about a communication skills workshop.
Yes.
And we've got some response from it, so we've got some stuff to follow up with. One of the things that comes about with Speechcraft is immediate gratification. You're not committing to a 4-year college degree. You're not committing to 13 weeks of Carnegie. I have a great appreciation for Carnegie. My late father-in-law was a Carnegie instructor. That's a lot of money for Carnegie. It's a lot of time. This is a short commitment. You get indication of not only skill, but of progress the first week. I think you've probably figured out our culture is kind of driven by immediate gratification these days, right? That's built into Speechcraft. There is progress each week. And here's a big part of it for me, again, coming out of the college environment, it's documented progress. When I talk with students coming in for new student orientation at my college, I talk to them about a 3D education that you're developing, demonstrating, and documenting that you have achieved these skills. We have people coming into college who come from a military background. I will guarantee you they have skills. So it's not so much the developing, but there may be the demonstrating and then the documenting. Non-traditional students, if they're coming into college at 35 years old, they've got skills. This is an opportunity to develop and to document those skills. So Speechcraft is kind of like that. They will get a certificate. They will get some kind of documentation. They have completed this, and if they never do anything with Toastmasters, they've got something that is valuable to them to take to their employer. Okay, or to put on LinkedIn or whatever it might be. Okay, there is momentum. I bet most of you have heard in terms of time management. You know, if there's something you don't want to do, just say, well, I'm just going to spend 5 minutes on it. Have you ever played that game with yourself? Does it work for you? Mary says, no, it doesn't work for me either, Mary. Okay. Because after 5 minutes, I'll quit. Okay. But for a lot of people, once you've got started with it, and I do relate to it on a little different level. I don't feel like fixing breakfast this morning, but I'll at least go in the kitchen and fix some coffee. Well, as long as I'm fixing coffee, I might as well get, okay, there's momentum. Speechcraft gets the momentum started. Okay? The financial incentive can be a significant incentive, but for a lot of people, it's, I've already got 3 speeches towards a pathway. I don't quite understand what a pathway is, but I know that that's part. And the reason they can do that is those first 3 speeches are about the same regardless of the pathway. So you can make it fit. Bert.
The one thing I want to say, you've got momentum. You may have people in your club that are going to help with this. And they're going to be sitting there going, wow, it's taken me 6 months and I haven't given my second speech yet. And these people are in 3 weeks have given 3 or 4 weeks have given 3 speeches. Maybe I ought to get on the ball too, because it will fire your club up when you get some fresh blood in and says, hey, I can speak and I'm doing it. And it'll fire your club up. It'll help you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I hadn't even thought about the impact on the existing club, but that's a great point, Bert. So absolutely. It gets them used to Toastmasters. Several of you have commented about, I don't know what's going on. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do that. It's the same interface for doing the electronic aspect of Speechcraft as you would use for interacting with Toastmasters International. So it helps to get people over that hump. It helps them to get used to meeting flow, to get used to using the web. So again,
to reinforce what you're saying, the new pathways is a mini agenda. It is almost identical to the agenda you're going to see in the Toastmasters meeting. You have a timer, you have a grammarian, always doing table topics. The only thing that may be some variation is word of the day, and maybe some clubs do invocation or inspiration. But by the time they have the Toastmasters meeting, they're going, oh, I'm familiar with this.
Yeah.
I've been doing this.
It feels familiar, and I'm putting the emphasis on feeling here, because that's a real important part of the reason why people leave. Yes?
You said it was a 4, 6, or 8 week intensive. What is the frequency during the week?
Once a week, usually. Once a week. If you're doing a 4-week, you probably want to have 2 hours for it. Okay? But once a week.
Okay.
So again, that helps to get used to something with Toastmasters, right? Okay, so in the time, we don't have a lot of time left here. Let's, are we at the 5 minutes, Bert?
Yeah.
5 minutes, okay, all right. Let's throw out some practical considerations. I don't have the answers for you. The point is, these are questions you would need to ask yourself and answer in order to move forward with Speechcraft. There's considerations about when are we going to conduct the Speechcraft. Think about the morning cup. We meet at 7:30 on Wednesday mornings. If we try to do a Speechcraft at 7 p.m. on Tuesday nights, there are people who can come to that Speechcraft, but they won't be able to go to the club meeting. So that's not going to help build our club. On the other hand, if what we're trying to do is to get more people in our club, the best time for us to do that is going to be at 7:30 on Wednesday mornings. But then that means that there's people who for 4, 6, or 8 weeks are going to be missing our club meetings. And by the way, we have to find a place to do that. Okay, so there's no right answer here. You just have to think about this in terms of the considerations. We were thinking about maybe spinning off a daughter club. We were thinking sometime other than our own. Well, then we still have a practical question about if our members can meet at 7:30 on Wednesday mornings. That doesn't mean they're available to do a Speechcraft at 7 p.m. on Tuesday nights. So there's practical stuff with that. You obviously already are thinking about the finances, okay? But this when thing is a practical question that has to be answered. The who question needs to be answered. Who are you targeting? Who are you targeting? It encourages your existing members because once they have put in what Bert was talking about here, but also, you know, if you've already got one of your requirements for DTM knocked out, I hate to lose that. Maybe I should stay with Toastmasters until I get the other stuff done. By the way, if you're a brand new Toastmaster, you can get credit for doing Speechcraft and hold on to this until you need it. You don't have to complete the pathways first. Okay, so they'll hold on to it. There's the problem that a club must sponsor it.
How
Yes.
is it valid for?
Say that?
How long is it valid for?
How long is it valid? As far as I know, forever.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, there could be, because I started with Toastmasters not just in the last program, but the one before that. My first one was a competent communicator, the CC. Okay. So when we came over to the new program, you know, there was a 2-year period where you could use the old stuff towards the DTM, but there was an end to it. So that could happen. Okay, but right now it's just going to last forever. Okay, maybe we talked about sponsorship a little earlier. I would suggest that you need 2 to 3 months to publicize this. You can't decide this week, we're going to have a Speechcraft next week and get any buy-in. Okay, how long beforehand did you do yours, Burton? Okay,
I was told by Jason on Monday that it was Thursday.
Okay.
I didn't know any of the material, and I spent days online getting caught up to what's there. And I was lucky to elicit a lot of help from people that knew a lot more than me.
Okay, but you were going into a college situation, so there was sort of an existing community there.
Yeah.
Okay, we're talking about like the Speechcraft out in the community. It takes a while.
You need months.
Yeah, and so the 2 to 3 months to publicize it. Social media, word of mouth, newspaper. This is, by the way, a good press release excuse. How many people we have that have worked in media? Oh, wow. Okay, I'm the only.
By the way, Joe Lubin's going to be talking about press releases tonight at her.
And so obviously I don't have time to go into this, but one of the big challenges that clubs will have is that they will think, I'll just send a press release to the newspaper about the club. And the newspaper doesn't care because nothing is new. There's no news value there. Well, this is news value. So it's a great excuse for a press release. Chamber of Commerce. Get the Chamber of Commerce involved. Get the Rotary Club involved. It's going to take 2 to 3 months to do that, you see. And then that also gives you time for you to figure out how to do it instead of like Bert, who had to figure it out in 3 days. Now, we are out of time, folks, so what I want to do here, share my screen real quick. There we are. Speechcraft interest group. If you know how to do QR codes, you may know how, and you don't even know you know how. Just take your phone, its camera, point at that, it will probably connect you to it. I would encourage you to do that right now. It will lead you to a form where you will just simply share your name and your email address, and it's saying that you're interested in talking more about it. There's also a link that if you want to type it out down there, or you can just drop me an email, and I'll add you to the group. Now, there's no commercial stuff involved here, okay? This is just across the whole district, wherever you are, for us to be able to talk about what are we learning about how to do Speechcraft, to generate ideas, to support each other in exploring what I think is one of the most valuable tools that we have in Toastmasters, one of the least used and neglected, one of the most impactful. I appreciate your time today. If you just want to drop me an email to say hi, feel free to do that. But let me know that you want to talk more about Speechcraft if that's what you're emailing me for.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.